We could all stand for the pledge, please. Mr. Skelly, if you could lead us.
The pledge to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a moment of silence. This is for Mr. Pat McGuire, Jr., former Fire Chief, Waterloo. Thank you. Next, public participation. Walter.
Yes. Leah Gill, please.
Waterbrook Hill in town. Good evening. After reading the posted minutes from the last meeting, I have questions and comments. The agenda items that Councilman Mullen requested as including amendments, appointments to open seats. I would support Jeff Winter for alternate on Board of Finance, Julie Learson, Zoning Commission regular member, and Cindy Davis, alternate Planning Commission. This is a reflection on going back to the time when Patricia Murphy, our former mayor, filled numerous town positions in this manner. And she allowed the appointments to remain instead of tossing them aside. Now, the other is that in looking for the comment that was made about it was allowed by state statute to appoint an elected official as an alternate on another elected board, I read further on down in the subsections, and it goes on to make the fact that we have communities in this state that are very small. And as an example, you've got like neighbors, Roxbury, Sherman, go up to the road to Canaan. They make acknowledgments for the low voter registration in those communities, which would allow for the appointment of an individual who is already on an elected board to serve as an alternate on yet another. As a consequence, we're bigger than that. We have a lot more voters. Matter of fact, we have more registered voters than some of these towns put together. So I would say that that was an incomplete citation. Now, as far as Pettibone, I would ask all of you, please, preserve Pettibone. Make the investments in repairs and maintenance as they come along. We don't mean to have a Taj Mahal, but if you destroy Pettibone, you will bring upon the wrath of the Audubon Society. Perhaps you fail to realize that some years back, it was noted that the chimney swifts nest and breed in the chimneys, literally, and they're endangered. And this is on file, ladies and gentlemen, with the state. And if you really want to get a few people upset, you just take their little nesting habitat away. All right? Now, that being said, with the boiler fixed, they would be warm. And then I have noted things as well. The town hall boiler, and I remember they did this last summer, was repaired last year, and it cost over $15,000. Senior center shut down because of boiler issues. I know, because Cert Mead's there and we couldn't. The Maxwell shut down because a sewer pipe burst. We had to repair that. Let's face it, these are not new buildings. As our homes, things need regular maintenance. Oops, happens. You just pay it as you go along. We're not looking to make anything enormous and such an expenditure of these ridiculous figures that have been spread around town for the maintenance and the upgrades. I have a funny feeling that 40% of it is going into some developers' pockets for commissions and referrals. So I would just ask you to use some good old Yankee ingenuity, common sense, and you have some long-term perspective. You get rid of Pettibone, Oh, you might get a few bucks for it now. But do you know something? You'll never have a community center because we'll never be able to afford one. But yes, in increments, we can maintain Pettibone, upgrade it as time requests, and not burden taxpayers. So that's all I say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Ellen Applebaum, please.
Good evening. I had the pleasure a couple of weeks ago, several times actually, to visit the Pettibone School at night for meetings, and it was delightful. There was a yoga class going on, there were several meetings going on, and it was convenient, and there was parking, and there was such friendliness as people coming into the Civic Center and people coming out. Smiles, hellos, how are yous? That's very good for this community. We've seen several stores close in the last month on Bank Street. That's very bad for our community. We need to have our downtown buildings, businesses up and running to bring people into our town. We don't want them to not come to town. We want them to come, visit our shops, eat at our restaurants, and when they have a meeting to go to get over to Pettibone. The second thing I wanted to mention is I recently read that 60 of the towns in Connecticut have energy commissions. So I went on to the website for our town, and I can't find an energy commission. And I wonder if that wouldn't be a good idea to consider, especially when we had a problem recently with the solar panel farm that was under consideration for the mountain. We know that now it seems to be a fait accompli, perhaps. But if we had an energy commission, then before these issues came up, we might have a way to look at them and determine what we want for our town. Thank you.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Helen Applebaum, 75 Buckingham Road. And if you want to know about clapboard old houses, I can tell you.
Thank you, Ellen. Julie Learson, please.
Good evening. I'm Julie Learson of 124 Great Brook Road. I'm here tonight because I think it's item 12B on the agenda tonight under the mayor's remarks about the establishment of the ad hoc committee on the future of a community center. I am here tonight because I would like to put myself forward. If you are looking for volunteers, I would be very happy to serve on that board. I don't have much more to say than that. I have about 20 plus years of project management experience, and as an active theater artist in academia, I have worked in, through, around many buildings of various antiquity for general repurposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Davis, please.
Good evening. Do I need to use this? Okay, so Park Lane West. So I'm here, for the record, to talk about appointing Jeff Winters, Julie Learson, and myself. Now for the Pettibone boiler, I support that monies are used to pay for that. As was previously stated, there have been other costs to the town that have been paid, which include the senior center boiler issue, the Max Center. The Max was shut down because of a sewer pipe burst. That's just basic maintenance, and that just needs to be done. I put my name down to be on the Pettibone committee, whenever it was. I have gotten no response. So I know that when the transition occurred and there was all this talk about putting your names forward, you guys haven't delivered on that. So you need to. And in regards to what's happening in the town with the closing of the two, or soon to be two, Bank Street businesses, last spring, the town was alive at like 7, 8 o'clock at night. There was so much bustleness, vitality. It will be very interesting to see how alive the town will be come the spring. That will be a visible representation of what you on the council have done to support the well-being of the community. I hope that the bustle and the activity remains. You have a job to do. You want to keep this town vibrant. Things are changing really quickly. That's what you were elected for. That's why that was your stance. I hope that you are wise to do what you need to do and don't just do a lot of talk, because I haven't heard from you about my recommendation to be on a committee.
Thank you, Cindy. Mary Jane Lundgren, please.
Mary Jane Lundgren, 89 Chernivtsi Road. And in case anybody wonders, there is life after the town council. It's pretty exciting, and I wish you all good luck, and good luck over the budget season. It will seem interminable at times, but you will get through it, and try and enjoy the process, but good luck. I'm here tonight. This was a very historic day today. The U.S. Senate, the Republicans and the Democrats came together to avoid the shutdown, and hopefully, I don't know if the House voted on it yet, but I know they're getting there. So I just think, you know, if they can work together, we can work together, and my message tonight is let's do that. Let's work together on these appointments. The Democrats have a process, the Republicans have a process, and I know Lisa is a big process advocate. So let's do that. Let's work together. We've all got good people. You don't want everybody from one party on a committee, because we know, you know, it will sink the ship, basically, because you're not going to have that diversity of opinion. So I think it's really important. The Democrats are willing to work together. We like to work together, and we hope that you feel the same way. And we know Dr. Mullen has had I think 2 council meetings in a row had put in requests and they weren't heard, and I am disappointed about that. So let's try and stop that, put it behind us. Let's get together and work for the good of the whole town in Milford. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Adrian Riccio, please.
Good evening, it's Adriana Riccio, 72 Chernivtsi Road. I want to say something about Pettibone. Last year around this time, I went to a seminar at a school building that was repurposed into a community center and a library. It was almost identical to the Pettibone building, and it's in Collinsville, Connecticut, if anyone's been there. It's not right smack in the middle of Collinsville, but you could walk there. It's probably about as far as Pettibone is from Bank Street. And the place was vibrant, it was full of people. It was so popular that they were actually running out of space. They had put the library in part of it, they used the cafeteria, just the exact same cafeteria that we have at Pettibone. We were using it for meetings, all kinds of people were renting the space. So it actually had become a moneymaker. And what I want to say to you all, especially you, Mayor Bass, because a lot of your supporters during the campaign were vehemently opposed to Pettibone remaining, and I think that's a very bad way to look at it. It should be looked at as the glass half full, because it could be a moneymaker. It is not a drain on the community. It's something that people are using, and there's a lot of space in there that could be used. In fact, the library itself, the library room, could be used as an annex for the library that's running out of space downtown until they get the funds to enlarge the library. So I'm very much in favor of keeping Pettibone. I think you should consider some of the people who have put their names forward, who are Democrats and unaffiliated, to be on the committee. I don't think it should be all builders and contractors who want to maybe get some work out of it, because I've heard the rumblings. I hope we can work together to keep it as a community center. It's a very big asset for the town. That being said, I think you should repair the boiler. As other people have said, we spent $15,000 to repair the boiler in the town hall last year. The senior center shut down because of boiler issues. These are things that happen with aging buildings. We certainly can't replace every building in town. That would be crazy and impractical, and we don't have the money. So fix the boiler, and let's make it a great community center. And I hope that the community culinary school is successful in raising money so that they can move over there. It's a great resource, and if we don't have it, where are you going to find a piece of property that big to build a community center? As some people in town who have suggested that we should start fresh and build a brand new one. And I say, if you're looking at $20 million, then yeah, what a great idea. But I don't think anyone in town is going to approve a $20 million community center. I really just don't see it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Jeff Winter, please.
Good evening. Jeff Winter, 22 Morey Road. In case those of you who are, especially those of you who are new members of the town council, did you know that the charter actually grants you the ability to ask for anything to be put on any town council agenda? It's actually section 404, and part of it it reads as such: said agenda shall contain all items, not just one, all items submitted to the mayor by any member of the town council. So that is actually a right and a privilege that you have of being elected to the town council. So when a member of the town council, 2 meetings in a row, has his items omitted, what does that say? What does that, I mean, first of all, it's a violation of the charter. It's in the charter. Those of you with the computers, you can look it up. You've had 5 meetings. This is their 5th meeting as mayor. 2 meetings out of 5 where the charter is violated. I think we can do better than that. I'd like to read you just a few quotes. And these are most of these are from the last election, but bringing people together, organizations and town government together, is imperative as we move into the future. I believe that bringing different ideas and viewpoints to the table leads to better decisions when it comes to matters that affect New Milford. To achieve what needs to be done now and in the future requires the community to be involved. By pulling together and exploring diverse ideas and public input on the issues facing New Milford, we can use our own unique experiences and skill sets to make New Milford's future bright. From the debate, and this is from the News Times, and it's regarding the Board of Finance. Bass said the board plays an important oversight role, providing needed checks and balances on the mayor and town council. I 100% believe that the Board of Finance needs to have more of a say. We need to have more accountability. So I think if it really is true oversight, you need to have a diverse Board of Finance. Regarding tonight's appointee, who I have served with on the Economic Development Commission and have nothing but respect for, just a month, slightly over a month ago, on December 4th, Mayor, you had Mr. Ciata as slated to be a full member of the Zoning Commission, which is what he actually desired after being an alternate for all these years. It was even pointed out in the prior administration that Mr. Ciata wanted to serve and continue to serve on zoning, and he even said that he is apparently being replaced, yet he received no thank you letter, no phone call, nor an email advising him of such. He felt mistreated, and that's okay. Well, tonight, my seat on the pension committee is being replaced. I didn't receive a phone call. I didn't receive a letter. But you know what? I'm not offended by it. But I do expect Dr. Mullins and the Democratic Party's nominees to be brought forward.
Jeff, you're at 4 minutes, please.
Thank you. Lastly, Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-34A, actually talk about alternate members of the Board of Finance and how they must follow the rules of minority representation. For those of you who don't know that, what that means is that if, one party cannot have more than 2/3 of a particular board, but also for the alternates, those must have minority representation. At the last meeting, a Republican filled what is traditionally a Republican seat as an alternate on the Board of Finance. Now it appears that the other majority party in town, major party, excuse me, is being excluded. That is not an example of minority representation, nor is that an example of, if you want to call it, pulling together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Jeff McBride, please.
Good evening, Jeff McBride, 288 Kent Road. First and foremost, before I start, I would like everybody in here to know that I promote education for the children of these schools because the children are our future, okay? But I think that things need to be fair in their system each year when it comes to budget time. And I gave each one of you a snapshot of some of the items that are on the new budget for the 18-19 year, and at the last meeting I gave you a snapshot of some of the items on the budget for the 17-18 year. Now if you look through these items, you'll see for Hill and Plain School, Sarah Noble Intermediate School, and Scotticoke Middle School and the high school, if what they received in the year of 17-18 was doubled by 100% for this year, for the schools and the items that they're looking, we could save, just on these few items, $44,836 if you gave them a 100% increase. Now, some of the other aspects within the town budget that I looked at, and there are several different line items, and again, I used a 100% increase to show that what they would be able to give for the 18-19 year, and then a few snapshots of these things that if we gave them a 100% increase, we would save $50,907, or on these few items that I listed, we'd save $95,750 just on these few. Now, if we look over each line item and look at it fairly, and look at it as a 100% increase when absolutely necessary, I feel that we can save close to $200,000 here, folks. Okay, and $200,000 and a $100 million+ budget might not seem like much, but it is. And the reason that I say that it is because I'm a citizen of the town of New Milford, has been retired for 11 years, and my income has been exactly the same for 11 years. And each year, when the town budget gets passed and there's an increase in the taxes, okay, that puts a burden on me and every other fixed income person that lives in this town, okay? I don't know where everybody thinks that we're going to continue to try to get money. Eventually, we're going to have to offset some of the stuff that we are just barely getting by on paying right now, and eventually something that we do is not going to get paid anymore each year. So it's critical with the school budget as well as the town budget. I can't exclude that because that's critical as well. We have to scrutinize every single solitary cent that we can and be fair to the citizens of this town, okay, in every way possible, because it's all of our town, not just the 9 or 10 people that sit here in this room and make the decision, or the Board of Finance. They have to look at that as well, okay, because I feel that it's more critical for the Board of Finance to look at these items and make the final decision than the town council to put this to a referendum and a vote that most people will not vote for. So let's work together with the Board of Finance and get this new town budget, you know, workable for everybody, so that when it does go to referendum, that it should pass the first time. I really hope it does, and I really hope you take these temporary snapshot figures into consideration when you're making your decisions for the future of the town and the business of the town. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Mayor, that's the end of the list.
Thank you, Walter. Next, I'd like to do mayor's remarks. Before I do that, I'd like to, if it's okay with everybody, have an approval of the prior minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Moore.
I guess it's page 6, because I see 6 in the bottom right-hand corner. This was a discussion during the pension. I would like to add something that I requested from Mr. Pilla that he said yes to. I think it should be part of the minutes. I requested that the pension committee have a meeting where there's a quorum. Since there has not been a quorum in almost 2.5 years. And I understood that when the actuary
It's on
comes...
page 7, Dr. Moore.
What's that?
It's on page 7.
Did I miss it?
Yes, sir. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th paragraph down.
Thank you, Mayor. I
Yes,
did
sir.
not see that. Never mind. Didn't see it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I abstain.
Abstain as well.
Thank you. Next, a couple of items. First, note on February 2nd is National Wear Red Day, and that will be at the E. Paul Martin Room. And it's the New Milford VNA along with the YMCA. They're going to do free blood pressure readings, heart rate, height and weight, BMI, cholesterol, blood sugar via finger stick, and a diabetic risk assessment. No fasting is necessary. There's 24 slots available, and you can talk to Jen Lewis at the health department. Please feel free to do so.
No groundhog?
No groundhog. Next, a couple of items too. So as we all know, we have the ice jams that are up in Kent, and that's brought to lots of people's attention. So I just want to let everybody know that we have met with the chief of police, the fire chiefs, our emergency preparedness management team, and we're fully prepared should the ice dam just north of Bulls Bridge decide to move forward. We have our emergency operations center ready in case there is a problem. We have a traffic plan in place, as well as if needed shelters. We have the Max and we have Sarah Noble if needed. Why those two buildings is because both those buildings have generators already. We're urging all homeowners and businesses to register online with Everbright. You can find that on the New Milford Police website. We'll be pushing that out tomorrow too, where you can go on, and what that does is if there's any kind of emergency situation, they'll actually call you back or text you on your cell phone and give you immediate things to stay informed and to stay safe. With that in mind as well, we've also let people know, though it's very beautiful, it is extremely dangerous, and even more so now, the ice on the river, because it's becoming more unstable with the warmer weather. So those that think about maybe taking a selfie on the Housatonic River, I would advise you not to do that. The fire department let me know that if you're going to do that on the Housatonic River, they're not going to be able to go out there and get you. So it's very important that you take pictures a little bit farther away and enjoy kind of the anomaly of that. Also, many of you know we're facing a $2.2 million revenue shortfall this year. The governor cut our revenues. We're working diligently with the Board of Ed to solve this problem. I'll be speaking a little later on our agenda about a partial solution to this. I've been meeting with the Board of Ed. We had a Board of Ed meeting. Thank you guys for coming tonight. We had a meeting today, as well as we've been meeting with the department heads all this past week. They've been giving us our presentations for the year 18-19, and these meetings are only the first step. Rest assured, we are critically examining each and every proposed line item for possible cost savings and revenue enhancements. During the election, the taxpayers expressed their concern over tax increases and how New Milford is no longer affordable for some of them. Businesses feel that no longer New Milford is affordable as well. So we're going to do everything we can to help mitigate those costs, increase our revenues, and help New Milford grow. As some of us had talked about tonight, is the creation of the Community Center Subcommittee. So speaking of election promises, I mentioned during my campaign that we are creating a 25-member subcommittee to look at the benefits and costs of a community center, getting community input and looking what the public really wants, what amenities should be included, what is the best location, and do we have the ability to pay for it? Tonight on our agenda, I will be talking about costs we have expended to date on John Pettibone, so we can start to understand what the actual and what annual operating costs will be. In addition, I'll be presenting required costs at a later date to bring JPS up to code and safety standards. Cost estimates for a new roof, new boilers, air conditioning, and so on, that most of us already know would be needed for this building. Let me be clear. I'm not against JPS as a possible location for our community center. However, you, the taxpayers, citizens of this town, deserve a say in what is included and an understanding of how much it will cost. You deserve to be included in this process. I will make sure that happens, starting with appointments of a subcommittee. With this in mind, at the Town Council, I'm also going to be bringing forward at the next Town Council meeting and recommending a facilities utilization committee. Their charter will be to look at all town building assets and determine if we are using them in the most effective manner. They will compare current department space needs, future needs, and a host of buildings the town currently owns, finding an optimal solution for all of us. Hopefully, this will also help us identify those buildings and properties that need work, and also those that need to be repurposed and can be used to generate revenue and or bring new businesses to town as shovel-ready facilities. Also, as we're going through the budget process, and this will be sent out to our council members and put online, we will be going through our budget next month. Right now, currently, the Board of Ed and the Town Council are hearing, at least on the council side from our departments, Superintendent Josh Smith presented his budget to the Town Council. So our timeline is going to be, I'm going to present to the Town Council and Board of Finance on February 20th the mayor's budget. Deliberations will begin on 2/26 to 3/9, and this will include Fridays. Town Council is then going to meet on Town Council then will have a meeting on 3/12, and then the mayor and Town Council will decide, if they can, on a recommendation to move forward to Board of Finance on March 13th. The recommendation with a 10-year capital plan will go to the Board of Finance on 3/20. And with that being said, one last thing. For those that didn't know, Mr. McGuire, Pat McGuire, he is the bagpiper that we know in town. He was the former administrative aide to Mayor Peitler. His son, Patrick Jr., passed away. He was a fire chief for Waterwitch, family man, and just memory eternal. With that being said, next I'd like to move on to the tax collector. If I could have a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the January 2018 refunds as recommended by Mrs. McGavick and Mrs. Conway in the amount of $4,994.81 leaving a balance of $3,839.94.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, social services.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the acceptance of a donation of a new refrigerator freezer of up to $2,000 in value from an anonymous donor to be used in the food bank by social services.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, the Director of Finance. Greg, if you'd like to come up and on number A, discussion regarding Town of New Milford year-to-date budget reports.
Good evening. First, I'd like to start off talking about the audit. The audit, I have been given draft financial statements. We have favorable operating results, and a joint meeting needs to be scheduled for presentation. I have a more user-friendly document for this budget season. The mayor stole some of my thunder. We started meeting with departments to discuss their respective budgets. We are going to have a lot of work ahead of us. The comptroller search, we have interviewed 3 candidates. We made an offer which was accepted. She is on the agenda tonight for your consideration. The year-to-date budget, expenditures as of 11/30, 48% has been expended or encumbered. Issues on the expenditure side of the budget are basically the same as last month's report. Dispatcher overtime budget is overspent. That's a result of being down 2 positions, and there's offsetting savings in the dispatcher salary line. Telephones are running above budget. The mayor's office is reviewing the current use of town cell phones. Recycling overtime is over budget. Legal expense, the other legal line expense is depleted. Funds are still available in various other legal lines. Randy DeBella and Town Attorney Matt Grimes have prepared a supplemental appropriation for your consideration tonight. On a more recent note, I looked at winter overtime, and as of today, 56% of that budget is spent. On the revenue side, overall revenues are at 47.7% of budget. Tax collections are at 55.7% as of November. And I looked as of the end of December, I just was able to book the revenue from December. And we have 69.1% collected as of December. There was prepayment of the second installment of taxes due to the changes in the federal tax law. Now, the deficit. I have passed out before you.
This will be item number 2, Greg.
Pardon me?
Are you moving to item number 2, which is the designation? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Before you do that, Greg, do we have
Okay.
any questions from the
Okay,
council
sure.
so far for Mr. Osipov? Okay, Greg, number 2.
All right. The deficit, as you know, is at $2.21 million. I have placed before you a plan to mitigate nearly 2/3 of that. We are currently, as the mayor said, working with the Board of Education to mitigate the remainder, but I'm asking for this body, as a result of our favorable surplus from the audit, to designate 1.5 million of the surplus towards deficit reduction, which will effectively reduce the number that we need to resolve to approximately $700,000. I've spoken to our financial advisor, I've spoken to our auditors, and they both endorse this plan. I believe this plan will avoid having to issue supplemental tax increase, and I'm confident that together with the Board of Ed, that we will be able to mitigate the $700,000 before year end.
Any questions for Mr. Ossoff? Paul?
When do you anticipate coming back to us as it relates to Board of Ed's participation in the remaining 700,000 and where we may send it?
I don't have an answer for that, Paul. We just started. I figure if you endorse the designation of this, we'll know exactly how much we're looking for. Will it be 2.2 million or will it be 700,000?
So to be clear, of the 1.5 million based on, I know I popped over last week to talk to you quickly. So about 400,000 of that is surplus from line items, and 1.1 is the bond premium that we received with our latest bond offering?
That's correct.
Okay.
And of that 400,000, part of that is the Board of Ed. Now, there's a caveat. The Board of Ed had already, unbeknownst to me, asked their board to, I don't know if designate is the right word, their portion of the surplus to capital reserve. So they have to go back Wednesday night to discuss with their board to really unravel that part of their request so we can comply with the 1.5 million.
So how much of that 400 is Board of Ed?
Approximately 193,000.
Okay. So if we're to authorize that tonight, should we do it contingent on Board of Ed?
Yes, friendly amendment. I don't know if that's what you would call it, or I'm not sure what the word is.
I don't think I call it that, no.
It would be a bad phrase. Bad phrase? Okay. I'll leave that to you.
Lisa?
So if I understand this correctly, next year, we not only have the $2.2 million cut from the state, but an additional $300,000. So next year, we're going to have to find $2.5 million. Am I correct in my understanding?
At least.
All right. So I appreciate that this is a solution that keeps the burden from the taxpayers. However, I'm extremely concerned that we are just pushing off hard decisions. And I'm wondering, in your discussions so far with the department heads, has everybody started with a 2% decrease in their ask? Because across the board, 2 million on 100 million is a 2% decrease.
Their request came in fairly robust, and as I said before, we have a lot of work to do.
So I'm going to have a hard time endorsing this plan without knowing the long game, which is what does it look like, not just for this year, but for next year, because we're just pushing off the hard decisions.
Well, again, this addresses the current year, and certainly we are going to have hard decisions, and they will be addressed during the budget season for 18-19. There's no getting around that.
So you're confident that at the end of the day, we're going to come in for 18-19 at 2% below 17-18?
2% below? No.
When you think about the 2.5 million.
Pardon me?
When you think about the 2.5 million we're facing next year,
That
over
will
100
have to-
million.
That will have to be addressed during the budget process, no doubt, on the expenditure side.
Tom is nodding. My math is right, right?
No, he's right.
I mean, that's.
We have an immediate
We have an
problem.
immediate issue, and we've got a long-term issue. We've got to take one at a time.
I understand that, but if we push it off until next year, are we gonna make those hard decisions, or are we hoping for a surplus?
I think what Lisa's trying to say
That's a little
is
premature. I'm looking to mitigate a deficit right now. I wouldn't go ahead and say we'll have a surplus. I'm not ready to make that commitment.
I think what she's just trying to say is if we're not going to give, if we're not going to have the department heads give a little bit now, instead of kind of slowly getting down to where we need to be in 2018, it's going to be more like this. And so if we only use part of the surplus to mitigate it now and then look at department heads to get back a little bit, it might be a little bit easier come next year. Is that what you're trying to somewhat say?
Not quite, but I appreciate the intent of your restatement.
That's the way I was looking at it.
Dr. Mullin.
I guess I wish this issue was dealt with and discussed during our budget discussions and deliberations. I would prefer not to vote on it tonight, myself. We have a lot of numbers to go through the last couple of weeks of February and the first week of March, as every town council has done in the past. And I think this is it's a little unusual designating funds a month before we start our discussion and then go into deliberation. So I'm not real warm and fuzzy on approving this tonight. We understand the numbers, we all get it, and I think we should deal with it at budget time, is my viewpoint.
Dr. Mullin, this is for this year. This isn't for next year's
We're
budget.
short for...
Yes.
Yeah.
This current, right now.
When Governor Malloy...
Is there something in my tea tonight? I'm missing everything.
Are you getting over the flu like I am?
No, I feel fine, too. I feel great.
It's been 2 weeks, Michael. I'll stay over here.
I'm going to shut up.
Here's where I get muddy waters and maybe what got you down that path, because my point was that if we push off making a decision by taking advantage of the current surplus, then next year we got a bigger pill to swallow. And how is that going to play out in the budget discussions?
I misunderstood. I thought you were talking 1819 to 1920. Sorry, Lisa.
It's okay.
Walter.
Well, Councilwoman Lisa, I think I understand where she's coming from, worried about kicking the can down the road. But this is an issue now that we have to take care of right now.
Yes, sir.
We're 2-point-some-odd million behind the 8 ball already. So I understand where you're coming from. But I don't envy Craig at all. I don't envy us at all.
Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah, I don't envy us at all. Where are we going to get this? Piggy bank. I think we should have a piggy bank on the table. Everybody that comes in, throw $1 in for crying out loud. You know? Well,
And then...
but good luck to us.
You know, at least I appreciate you making that point, because many of us have in the past, so that everybody does understand again. Department heads, people across the town that are bringing their budgets forward, know what we're up against. This is not a mystery. Everybody knows, everybody reads the paper, they see the news. So please, department heads, go back and let's try to get these numbers straight so we don't have a food fight here in a month, because we know what that's going to be like. This has happened in this room before. It's happened many years in a row. Let's try to mitigate that now. We need to tighten our belts now until the state can recover and we can find a way to get more revenue.
And if I could
And
just...
you make a great point, so we need to do it now.
Thank you, Tom. If I could just express the urgency of this.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, our municipal year ends in July. It's not like most of us, when we pay our taxes, it ends 12/31. It ends in June 30th. So we've already now need to expedite this as quick as possible. If this council approves this, then Greg will go to the Board of Finance, who's ready to meet tonight. And because they obviously have to approve it as well, and then get this $1.5 million reducted. But just so everyone is aware, that means we still have to find another $710,000
This year.
this year.
Now.
Correct.
So it's important that we take care of this portion first, And then we're going to come back to the council again with more thoughts with our Board of Ed partners on how we can help, and our Board of Finance partners, how we can help with this.
Again, if I can put this in perspective, if this plan is not approved, we have a $2.2 million problem right now, and we have 5 months in which to resolve it. I think by doing this is consistent with our fund balance policy. I see this as a way to, again, avoid a supplemental tax increase. Other communities are doing that. And again, to put in perspective, to solve a $2.2 million problem with layoffs, that would require, at $50,000 apiece, laying off 44 people. And that's for a full year's savings. We only have 5 months. So what are you going to do? I mean, lay off half the town? This mitigates a big 2/3 of this problem. And we do it before it hits the bottom line. I think it shows the bond market and our bondholders that we're being proactive in this approach. We're not being reactive. I think a $700,000 problem is more manageable than a $2.2 million problem, given that we only have 5 months left to resolve this.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
No vote.
Let's make a motion, sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the designation of $1,500,000 of fiscal year 2017 surplus towards the shortfall of fiscal year 2018 state revenue, subject to Board of Ed's approval of utilizing their capital reserve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Can I just,
Oh, Dr. Mullen?
just one last thing. When is the audit going to be available to us?
Soon as we get this issue resolved, this issue will have to be incorporated into the financial statements. That's why time is of the essence. We need to get our financials up to the state by January 31st.
Well, yeah, I got that part.
Yep.
But
As soon as I can release this information to the auditor.
I'm sorry. Well, what does that have to do with the audit that finished last June 30th?
We only have draft statements now. We're in the auditors are in the process of finalizing. They can't finalize until I give them an answer that we are designating this portion of the surplus so it doesn't fall to our unassigned fund balance. We're designating this to assign it for deficit reduction. That has to be part of our CAFR.
So the auditors cannot finish the audit that was, the final day was June 30th, 2017, without this. Is that what you're saying?
They can, but not without, if we're going to do this and we're going to designate that, they need to not drop this to our unassigned fund balance. It's going to be assigned for deficit reduction. So it does not affect our fund balance negatively. We still have, we still have a $17.8 million unassigned fund balance.
Let me just jump in for a second. I understand that part. I just don't understand how this, which is budget 17-18, is affecting the 16-17 audit.
Because we're taking the 16-17 surplus, which will be shown as a separate section within the equity section of our balance sheet in our audit. We're assigning that towards this year's deficit reduction. And that's how it will show on our audited financial statements.
All right.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Question?
You know, a lot of us, the last couple of years, especially this year, a lot of us who's attended these meetings, assumed that the state was going to give us this money. And this is our worst fear. And what's going to happen is if we don't solve this problem today, then we're going to have to go to the townspeople next year and going to have a tax increase. We got a school, there used to be a school, a community center to take care of. You know, we talk about kicking it down the road. Well, we got the can kicked to us because we assumed that we were going to get the money from the state. And we talked about it the whole year. Everybody said, well, what happens if they don't give it to us? So now we sit here today, short 2.2 million, we're trying to find a problem. And that's not the way you run a business. You can't think of future earnings when they're not here. And that's what we counted on. So today we sit here as a council trying to figure this out to solve this year's problem. And then we got to go back and file and figure out how to do next year's problem. And so the townspeople need to understand that when it comes to the budget next year, we're going to have to figure either cut or increase. And that's going to be up to them initially in the vote when it comes out.
On the floor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstain.
An abstention. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to move into executive session. I'd like to invite Randy and Matt and John. There he is, John Tower, please.
Could we use last names?
Okay, next up is number 9. So the Public Works and Road Advisory Committee, review and discussion of the Milford roads as of January 2018. John, please.
On the projector, or? Well, it's got a password lock on it. Ah.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to get?
Is she heating up? Warming up there. It's warming up. It is.
Yeah, it warms up.
Yeah, this is John.
There you go. Click on that. Mike. Where are we birds here? There you go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. You can bring them down like that if you want. And just bring them down, okay? Yeah. Just one at a time. Okey-doke. I think we're good. All right. Well, good evening, Mayor Bass, and members of the Town Council, executive staff, town officials, members of the public. I'm John Whitman. I'm a New Milford resident, and I'm chairman of the Road Advisory Committee. Tonight we're going to give you a presentation. Diana, if you bring the second one down. Yeah, there you go. Our committee was formed about a year ago, and our mandate is to assist the DPW and the mayor's office by working with the DPW in assessing road conditions and developing repair priorities along the way. Communicating with citizens about road issues and road repair priorities, and we act as a staff to the mayor and the DPW for issues related to those roads. That is our mission statement in essence. That's in a nutshell the mission that we operate on. The Road Advisory Committee was created for the purpose of providing a forum for objective and transparent and collaborative representation for all New Milford residents and taxpayers about issues regarding roads within the town and the work to maintain or rebuild them. The committee correlates its efforts, we correlate our efforts with the Public Works Department, the Mayor's Office of Community to make recommendations regarding those priorities for correcting road deficiencies and establishing criteria for prioritizing road improvement projects. That criteria includes, but it's not limited to, analysis of needs, safety issues, budgetary constraints, and the impact on the community. Our committee also provides a forum for the community to comment on issues regarding roads within New Milford, and we convey those comments to Public Works. We work with the mayor, the mayor's office, and we discuss if there's any immediate or planned action is necessary. So it's quite a collaborative agreement that we have with town hall and also with the DPW, and working obviously with the residents of New Milford and in their best interests. We currently have 6 members, myself. A little history, I'm a consultant. I'm retired, but still do consulting in the electric industry, and a retired electric and gas public utility operations manager, regional operations. John Oakes, and John is here. He's a consultant and also retired and a financial executive, and he's also our committee vice chairman. We have Jerry Lakovitz. She's a retired educator and a committee recording secretary. Jerry's here. And we have Joseph Cadell. He's in the Milford Road and general contractor. Joe is here in the front. Robert Barone. Rob Barone, he's a City of Danbury assistant construction manager, and he's also the former New Milford traffic. I'm sorry, and he's an assistant construction manager, and he also is very active in the town of New Milford. And then we have Chris Eaton, and Chris is the former Traffic Commission chairman and a residential program director for an assisted living facility here in the town. We have been working quite collaboratively with the DPW and Town Hall, and some of the examples that we have, and some of them have been very evident. And a lot of these have come out of meetings that the public has had with us in the Loretta Brickley conference room downstairs. And we always have a very open forum. We've been on social media advertising the fact that we do meet, what our purpose is. And something that we also do that we feel very proud of is that our committee, myself and our committee, we follow up with the residents. If something is going to happen that affects what they brought to us at a meeting, we call them. And we tell them what it's going to be, whether it's an immediate action such as fixing the road, or whether it's something that's going to be planned maybe in the next budget cycle. So we're very proactive in that. So some of the examples, we field surveyed all the roads in the 5-year capital construction plan. And the reason for that is we want to understand the scope and necessity of each one of these projects. By doing that, we were able to inject our thoughts and opinions and perhaps make some alterations into the priorities based on public input as well as our own input and our experience in the construction industries. We receive and act on DPW forwarded customer service requests, such as ingress, egress problems, hazardous road surfaces, runoff and erosion, and sightline safety issues. Simple things such as a customer or a resident would call and say, I'm having trouble getting out of my driveway because of a tree that's on town property. Simple things like that, we would call the DPW, talk to the highway supervisor, and work a plan on how to get these things trimmed. So it goes from the major projects, such as the 5-year capital plan, down to the very small things that are very important to individual residents. So that's some of the things we've done. We researched into the DPW's best practices. And the reason we did that is to better understand the department's philosophy and how they do things. And it allows our committee to become a more efficient partner with DPW by really understanding what they do and how they do it. So through our efforts and in concert with the former mayor, DPW director Mike Zarba, town engineer Dan Stanton, and the former finance director, we shifted the focus in the last 5-year capital plan to Long Mountain Road 3, which is what it's called on the priority, but it's one of the farther ends of Long Mountain Road, and also Squire Hill for rehabilitation of those two roads. And a lot of those folks came to our meeting and expressed concern that the road had deteriorated to a great extent over a lot of years. And we heard their concern, worked with DPW, and we moved that up the ladder. So what happens is, funds were allocated for an in-depth contract engineering, and the residents of both roads were invited to a public meeting at the John Pettibone Community Center. And that was, if I remember, there were over 100 people at that meeting. That was a fabulous meeting. And the engineering firm, along with Dan and Mike Zarba, Dan Stanton and Mike Zarba, and us to some extent, answered questions that the residents had, and they all were able to come up with big plans of the roads and mark down their concerns on the roads and things that they thought would be better addressed in a certain fashion. And that was all taken into account during the engineering of it. So it was quite something. And so they all had that opportunity to come up and shape the way these roads were going to be engineered. So we're very excited about where we are. We started in October of 2016, so we're just a little over a year old. And we really do look with enthusiasm for any way we can just be of additional assistance to the town hall and also to the DPW. We really are enthusiastic about that. Would you bring up the next slide, please? So one of the challenges we have maintaining and improving the Milford road conditions is that it's never been of a greater concern. 25% increase in roads under management. So in 1998, New Milford had 149 miles of paved roads. There are more roads in New Milford that aren't paved, but of the paved roads at 149, today we've got approximately 186. And the cost of labor and materials have risen dramatically. So since 2007 to 2017, asphalt costs have risen by 66.6%. And the years of deferred maintenance have eroded the quality of New Milford's roads based on insufficient funding, capital funding, to bring them up to the standards that are considered appropriate for communities such as ours or any community that travels roads and has that many miles. What I'd like to do now is bring up my Vice Chairman, John Oakes, and he's going to take it from here and run over some of it. And then how this is going to follow is Mike Zarba will follow John. John's going to go through some slides. Mike will get into some of the meat and the potatoes. You'll see some of the funding down in there, and then John's going to close the presentation. So that's the flow of the tonight. So I want to thank you very much, and I turn it over to John.
Thank you, John.
I'll leave this here.
Thanks, John. Can you have the next slide, please? So one of the things that we were trying to do as a committee was to get to understand the scope of the problem in terms of how we got to where we are in terms of our road quality. I think it's fairly clear when we talk to citizens that they're not really happy with the quality of roads. Now, I know that that's not a headline for anybody in this room. You guys have all heard it. We went through with DPW what they asked for and what they got over the last 12 years. And over the last 12 years, their requests have averaged $4 million a year. And over the last 12 years, they've received an average between 1.1 and 2 million a year. If you think about that, 3 times 12 would be 36 million in deferred funding relative to what they saw as the need at the worst. And at the best, it's $24 million. Have the next slide, please. So one of the things that happened this past year was that the town invested in an independent analysis by an outside firm called StreetScan. And what StreetScan did was to use high technology, primarily ground penetrating radar, to roll over our roads. They covered 98% of the town's roads. And in looking at the town's roads, and that was done this late fall, before the snow and the freezing and the defrosting and refreezing that we've had since then. They covered 182.4 miles of road. And what they come up with is something called a pavement condition index. Now, the DPW has an index of their own, and it's quite similar. It's called something different, but it's essentially similar. And one of the things that was clear to us in meeting with StreetScan, which we met with StreetScan along with DPW, was that their analysis confirmed what the DPW has been saying. Have the next slide, please. I'll take this one and then I'll hand it off to you. So this is, the overall rating from New Milford was 69.3% on a scale of 1 to 100. In terms of 69.3%, we tend to think this, the town, the DPW and the outside consultant tend to divide the pie into 5 parts. So you can see that we have very poor conditions in a little less than 20 miles of road, and poor in another 33.5 miles of road. The good news is we have a little over 103 miles of road that are in pretty good condition. And then we have 25, almost 26 miles that really are in need of some rehabilitation as well. A couple of things I point out is that in the game, road game, passing is 70%. It's kind of like what you had in school. So 69.3, a D plus, something along the lines of what the National Group of Engineers say about America's infrastructure. We're right on it. We're right on the number, D plus. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Zarba. We're going to tag team you a bit. Mike will come in now, and then I'll come back at the end.
Good evening, everyone. We go to the next slide. Next slide is actually going to be just a graph, I'll say a table summary of the same information you just saw on the previous slide, just in a little bit different format. So we don't need to review that too much more. I think John just did a great job of that. The next 3 slides we're going to get to, we'll start on the next slide, are what we had, how we develop our budgets basically, is budget scenarios. And with asset management programs or infrastructure management programs, such as StreetScan, or such as one that DPW currently runs called Cartograph, we can run these scenarios to determine the future condition of our roads based on investment value of what we can afford. So our first graph here, I'm going to just reference you to the red line on there, is the lowest value, obviously $1.5 million investment, roughly about what we've been getting over the years. If we continue on that path, you're going to see at 5 years from now, we're roughly going to get to a 55, 56 rating during that time. So we're going to drop from the 69.3 to a 55, 56, somewhere in that range. I don't know exactly what the number represents at the end of it, but it's somewhere in that vicinity. We obviously ran different budget scenarios with this particular one. Our next one's going to be the next set mid-range of, so if we can flip that thing. You see a couple different scenarios here. A little bit more investment in your road infrastructure. We wanted to highlight for you here the $4.5 million one, which is about what we've been asking for in general. That will be represented by the green line on this particular slide. And that basically keeps us in exactly the same condition after 5 years as what we are today. So we don't lose anything, we don't degrade in quality, but we don't gain anything either, is what that, those particular budget scenarios represent. And if we flip to the last, yes, sir.
Just for the audience, that's $4.5 million a year.
A consistent $4.5 million a year, 4 or 5 consecutive years is what all of these slides are representing. Consistent investment of the same value, year over year, correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, up the other way. There you go. And our last slide basically represents a little bit more aggressive investment. We'll highlight for you again the green line in this particular one is $6.5 million investment year after year for 5 successive years. Could bring us to around a 75, or basically about a C, as compared to our current D plus value that we're at. So we kind of want to give you some of these different scenarios as to how the programs kind of analyze what we invest in. And I'll just highlight for you back at slide 1, when we're investing lower amounts of money, we're typically, policy-wise, or the way road networks work, once roads, and if I can have you flip to one more slide now, forward. we run off a road decline curve, and I know town council, many of the town council members may have seen this before, maybe even the public. We've used this in our budget presentations over the years. Roads deteriorate from the day you build them until some point in the future when you reconstruct it or decide to do a particular construction process on it. The better the road, the cheaper the process you need to do to keep it maintained properly. The green representing routine maintenance processes such as crack sealing, maybe chip sealing, minor type road fixes that you would consider on a fairly decent surface. Preventative maintenance, the yellow categories for roads that are in fair shape, again, those chip seals, thin overlays, maybe a mill and overlay, might be in that kind of example. And then you get to rehabilitation of a road. Maybe a reclamation process might be included in that one, where you kind of grind up the pavement and the gravels together. You regrade them out. You maybe install a little bit of drainage if it wasn't there before, and repave the road. And then you get to full reconstruction. You have to basically dig out the subsurface gravels, pavement. You have to install quite a bit of drainage usually on those, and other safety features such as guide rails, culverts, along those lines. So the worse a road becomes, the more intensive the construction basically becomes of it. So what we're trying to highlight for you is when we invest lower amounts of money, our categories are typically limited to the routine and preventive maintenance categories. Rehabilitations and reconstructions are costly processes on roadways. So if we don't have the investment dollars to put towards a road, we can't very well rehabilitate or reconstruct it. So we typically focus on routine and preventative maintenance techniques on a roadway. That limits us severely to the types of roads that we can work on. You can't work on a road that needs a rehabilitation with a process that you use on a fairly good road. Crack seals don't work on a road that's completely broken up. It doesn't solve the problem. It's frankly a waste of money and a waste of labor time to go out there and do it, because you're going to typically see the problems come back again, if not the same year, certainly within a year or two of that process being done. So we typically focus on good roads. Keep good roads good is our general philosophy in the public works industry, and that's an industry-wide philosophy that's not just here in New Milford. You have to try to keep your good infrastructure good, because if you let it fail and all of it gets down to the lower dollar figure of the higher requirements for construction, it's a much more costly endeavor. And I know you guys have probably heard me say this before, but I know some of you are new here. For every dollar we delay on those routine and preventive maintenance techniques, you're going to spend $5, $6, $8 more to do that process, to do a more intensive process in the future. So we've heard plenty of times tonight, we've heard the term kick the can down the road. That's basically what you're doing. You're kicking the can down the road. $1 that you can invest today, it's going to cost you 8 times that amount in the future. So we typically invest those dollars, try to invest those dollars as wisely as possible by investing in the processes that work and keep good infrastructure good. If we've lost infrastructures to the point where it's poor, we basically do safety fixes on it. It's not as aesthetically pleasing, it's certainly not as comfortable to ride on, but it keeps the road passable or serviceable for the time until we can get the funds to rehabilitate or reconstruct them. So I think with that, I am done, but why don't we flip to the next slide, and I forget exactly which one that is, but yeah.
Mike, do you have a question?
Still on.
Yes.
Mike? Yes, sir.
Question for you, Mike. How
Yes.
does New Milford stack up to the other towns in Connecticut? If we're at 69.8, I think it was, are we average or a little bit worse, a little bit better?
We're about average, comparatively speaking to other communities. I think John said it best. Nationally, they've ranked infrastructure across the country. And the American Society of Civil Engineers is the society that he was referring to. They're a national society. They do study policies, government policies from the federal government all the way down through local governments, and evaluate, our overall network of infrastructure. Includes airports, bridges, tunnels, any kind of major civil infrastructure you can think of, water lines, sewer lines, roadways. Most of the infrastructure in there, with very few exceptions, are at best Cs or C pluses, and many of them are Ds or D minuses. Some of them, maybe one or two, might be a B. But the majority of our infrastructure across this country typically sits in that D to C minus category. So we're pretty much about where we expect we'd be based on the investment. What I think we're trying to give you is a picture of the dollars it takes to really invest in our infrastructure consistently. Because if you don't do it, what we're going to display for you right here on our rehabilitation versus chip sealing is you limit us to what we can do on roads, and you limit us to us as a community to how good our road condition can be. And that's a philosophy that we either all need to embrace in terms of dollars, or we need to embrace in terms of quality. It can't have great roads with no investment. It just, relatively speaking, I showed you the graphs. It doesn't work that way. You can't not invest in your infrastructure maintenance and then expect to get better, certainly than what you are, if you don't have a certain value. And I think we try to display that for you. So, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, I should say. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Okay. One of the things we heard during the election process was some comments about Marriott Road, which I believe was a major reconstruction, and the quality did not last in that particular project. Was that a case where the cheaper alternative had to be done to that road when actually it needed a far greater reconstruction, or was it a different quality problem that resulted in those comments?
Well, I disagree that the road has failed at all. I think it was, and correct me in the year, it was 2011? 2012? 2012, it was reconstructed. We're 5 years basically into that process, and typically the name up here, chip sealing, is a process you would typically do about 5 to 7 years out from the construction date to maintain the roadway. You could pick chip seal, you could maybe pick crack seal, depending on the condition of the road. Obviously, we go out and evaluate what we want to do, but it's not uncommon to do a chip seal on a road about 5 to 7 years after it's constructed.
So what we're looking to do is Lisa, is proactively do that. So I think the person who spoke, if you look back about 4 slides where we had the example of the road conditions deteriorating, where Mike said that, he saw that as policy. There is no official policy set by this body that says the town of New Milford Public Works Department shall chip seal a road after 5 years. That is best practice. That is our recommendation, and what we're seeking is to present the condition and a path forward
Gotcha.
with those funds.
And I think actually a couple of people brought up that same concern who live on Rail Road, but be that as it may, so with your comments in mind, do we have any type of quality metrics that we use that define what I would call, if it were a product, I'd call it mean time between unscheduled failure, right? An early failure. And do we have those metrics, and do we track those so that we know if we're going to really up the investment on our roads, we're getting the quality that we are paying for from our contractors?
Can you just flip back to the graphical curve? There you go. Thanks, Diane.
So do we have quality metrics along that lines to make sure that these things happen in this time frame, not earlier? The reference that John gave you earlier regarding PCI is our metric. The pavement condition index is a summation of the characteristics of a roadway, the engineering characteristics of a roadway. Its rideability, surface condition, number of cracks in it. Is it rutted? Meaning, does it kind of concave where the tires roll? Is it bumpy? Does it have a lot of potholes, a lot of utility cuts? Anything that would deteriorate the road is what we're trying to analyze from an engineering perspective. Sum all those together and you get the pavement condition index, which is, relatively speaking, what this curve represents over a period of time. The pavement condition index, the day we build it, should be a 100, which is what it's representing in the top left corner. And if you just let it sit there and do nothing to it, it will eventually get down to, somewhere in the very poor condition. And the trick is to extend that curve as long as practical by good maintenance techniques. And substantially
Dan was getting at is by doing those preventive maintenance or preservation techniques on a road, you can extend the life of your roads longer than if you just build it and let it go. We don't think that that's a wise investment process, but it's one practical one. You know, I don't think anybody does that with their house. I don't think anybody does that with their car. Any other, you know, type infrastructure like that. I think we all understand what maintenance, you know, is required on those things, and roadways require the same exact type of care. So this curve is really what our measure is. I try to answer your question. The PCI is that measure. So we know, you know, the general deterioration of a roadway. You know, if it's 5 years in and it's gone from a 100 to a 50, that's a metric we don't want to see. If it's 5 years in and it's gone from a 100 to a 75 or an 80, that's something we pretty much would expect it to be. And it's in the level, as long as it's in that range of where it's supposed to be, that we can do that preventive maintenance technique, then it's not deteriorating beyond where we would expect it to have been. Is that?
It kind of answers the question. So if I went and looked backwards at the roads we have invested in over the last 5 years, retroactively, and looked at your index, they're all on target. We've had great quality for what we've had to do, and there's been no, what I would term, early failures.
Not that I'm aware of on any of those roads, no.
Okay, thank you.
How many roads do we currently have designed? So if we were to give you a bucket of money, how many roads could you go out to bid on tomorrow?
Right now, none. We don't have any we don't have any fully designed, Paul, because we don't have any that are funded. You know, frankly, for design, except Long Mountain and Squire right now, which are 90%, 95% maybe at this point in time.
So yeah, so I guess the reason I asked is, you know, we're just having this discussion now prior to the budget, which is great. But when we look at proactively, if we're going to tackle this issue, you know, our lag is the design time, right, associated with that roadway. You know, Greg goes out and goes to bond for a road, say, and then you need that money, design monies, which are typically were incorporated into the bond in this most recent bond package. So you can't start designing that road until the bond, we have the bond. So now all of a sudden we wait, we then go out to bid to design the road, then the road gets designed, so we're not actually constructing that road for a minimum of 9 months to a year, correct me if I'm wrong, until after the bonding. So
correct, yeah.
What can we do internally? You know, like for instance, I saw between Chernisky, Squire, Hill, and Long Mountain, we're spending like $250,000 on design and survey.
Yes.
What can we do? I mean, that's a lot of money for if we had, you know, some staff handling, you know, the design of 3 roads. I mean, that goes a long way. So have we looked at how our needs have changed over time with respect to our staffing at Public Works and what those priorities currently are? And if we are going to make this shift to roads, are we considering as part of it doing design internally, or is that not under consideration? Because when I saw those prices, as an engineer, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money for 3 roads.
I'll say the design process I think we're entertaining on Long Mountain and Squire is fairly intensive. I don't think we go through as much of that on all of our roads, but we need to do it on some of them. What I'm a big believer in, and you know, Greg and I and Mayor and I have talked a little bit about this process. No, we need to know what money's coming. Right now, every year it's the same process we go through, right? We develop our needs in December. We put them pen to paper in January. We then, you know, squander around the budget process for the next 3 months, not knowing what we're getting. May finally comes around, we get to a vote with the referendum. We finally know what's coming down the pike. Now, I can't spend that money until after July 1st. Best I know the process and best I understand the legal requirements of the charter, that money doesn't become available to me until July 1st. If that's the case, I can't very well have a survey done, I can't very well have any design work done or anything spent on the roadway until at least the middle of July. By the time the money comes into the budget process, we cut a PO for it, and I get the actual consultant out there to do some work for us. I can't even get the base data I need to get my engineering staff on board with doing the design. So the budget process right now is inherently backlogs us kind of a year behind, if you want to say, at a minimum, because even if July comes around and we get the design in 2 or 3 months, I can't very well go out to construction in October, November, which is about the quickest I can turn around a road, design-wise, if all things fit into play. So I think the budget process right now, Paul, you asked what we can do. I think committing to funding the roadways in advance is a parameter that then we can schedule the design process in times when we're slowest, which is wintertime, when we'd rather be designing them rather than in the crux of our season when we're trying to do all of our work in the summertime, because we just first got the money and everybody expects their road's going to get done. And we basically have a 4-month construction window from July 1st until October to get
So
done.
you're saying
does that answer your question?
Sort of. So we have the staff to design the roadways. We don't have the staff and/or capability to do an existing condition survey prior to
We
the
certainly have the
design?
staff to design some of the roadways. Like I said, there are certain roads on here I think we would rather consider through a consultant design because they're a little bit more intensive and need a little bit more work construction-wise than someone. And Long Mountain and Squire are good examples of those types of roads.
So if we funded money for some existing condition surveys on some roads that are in our 5-year capital plan proactively, then you as a staff, for instance, the road scan, you guys used to do quarter of the roads each year.
Correct.
You could take that staff time in your slow times in the winter and start working on designing these roads so that we're proactively ahead of the curve, so that when Greg's going out to bond for the road reconstruction, in essence, the road's already designed.
So we're in that
ready to
exact
start.
process right now. There was 2.1 million band last April or so, became available in about August for us. Some of that went to the downtown streets that we were able to mill and pave, Bank Street, Bennett Street, and a couple other ones, probably Boardman Terrace, so far. And now this winter, we're basically taking the rest of those roads, Railroad Street, and there's several subdivision roads, if I'm not mistaken. Several subdivision roads, and I forget exactly what they are. I know Blue Bonnet's one of them, I don't remember the others, Sega and a couple others, that our staff is, going through the design process right now, so that springtime, we'll put those out for bid and construct them, this coming construction season.
And then Carmen Hill Road 1 and River Road 1 was in the 17-18 capital year plan.
Yes, sir.
That was not funded?
That's not funded, correct. So yeah, exactly, those are good examples of something we haven't done. We forecast them to come through, but because there's no monies available, we can't, we can't start spending the money on, obviously, on any design work yet.
And then we had in the capital improvement plan, I looked back today, 2.1 million for local road reconstruction. Do you have an idea of what the funding level was for that?
That's what I just referenced, the band money.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
band.
So that's
and
fully funded.
Some of it was spent this past construction season on the downtown streets, and the rest of it will be spent on those other subdivision roads, and
Yeah.
I believe Railroad Street's the other big street kind of left to do on there.
And then I guess my final question is for the road committee. Over the last year that you guys have been in place, I presume we're looking at how our Public Works Department currently reconstructs roads. Are you guys making any recommendations? Have you gone and seen how other towns reconstruct roads? Is there anything we can improve, or we're doing everything absolutely perfect? I'm a big person, and I'm a big proponent of learning from others, see what other people are doing and how we can do it better, because I know for a fact I'm not the best at what I do, so I'm always looking. Has the road committee taken that charge on, or?
Well, I can answer that. To this point, we have not. We're pretty much concentrating on the 5-year capital plan and to make sure that we're doing the best bang for the buck, the roads that are on, and we've done some shifting around on that. But that is a good idea, and we will take that under consideration.
Yeah, because we're getting our best bang for our buck.
Right.
Not that I don't
Right.
have confidence in these guys, but, there's always ways to improve. And if we're gonna make these large investments, I wanna make sure we're spending it in the most cost-efficient way possible.
Quite well taken, Paul.
Thank you.
Any other questions for?
Mike, I was just looking at the chart, it's about 54 miles that are poor condition or a very poor condition. How, time-wise, how many miles of road can you do a year? Obviously, I know it varies, but.
Yeah.
I mean, how many
You
miles?
burst John's bubble again. He's going to get to, we have a slide, I think, for you to kind of conclude that. Maybe it'll answer. If it doesn't, we'll try to reformulate that. If you can go just to the next slide, I'll just go through it real quick. I kind of mentioned what we've been doing over the years, keep those good roads good. You know, we've chip sealed roads over the past several years. Many of them kind of between these PCIs are of about 55 to 70. 55 is a little bit low for what we want to do a chip seal on a road. But next bullet down, you know, we backlog so much of our maintenance and so much of the funding. There's not many choices left for us to do it with a hard down budget to try to keep roads from failing altogether. So it's not the optimal process, but it's a process that keeps roads generally safe.
So to that question, if you look at our chip seal bid, for instance, we do partner with our contractor. We've had several different chip seal contractors and ask the question before they chip seal a road, can you chip seal this? So, you know, is this your best advice? Because not only is the town's name on the line, you know, their names are on the side of the truck. So, you know, we are doing roads in those conditions, but it's not recommended. It's not the proposal that we're putting forth. It's to buy time given the current financials that we're under.
And I think you can flip. You gonna take the next one? Yeah. So your math, by the way, Doug, was fantastic. I believe you're almost right on with the 54 miles.
So I get to finish this up, and we start by taking the budget, the draft budget for 2019 and breaking it out, 6.1 million. It's a big number. 3.1 goes to road reconstruction, and it only gets you 3.2 miles. That is a statement about how bad those roads are. 1.5 million goes to road rehabilitation. These are color coordinated up against the chart, the life of the roads chart. So reconstruction, rehabilitation, and prevention. What you see here is that we get about 2 miles for $2 million on rehabilitation. And if you add this all up, we're covering 37.7 million miles, well, that would be great, 37.7 miles in the budget request. And there's an additional $500,000 which goes for really for safety potholes and items like that. The important thing, I think, is this 53.3 miles below 55 is back to industry standards and what people should expect. Roads below 55% are clearly failing, and you do have safety issues. You clearly have drainage, which is contributing mightily to the problem. And the other thing is it's a tough night for the town council. I mean, there's been a lot of sort of tough financial realities thrown around here. So the roads are another example of a tough financial reality. Go to the next slide, please. And I want to just close by saying, the question of what's the road committee done to look at the work of the DPW, the quality of their work? Are they on the right track? We haven't looked at other towns, but we spent quite a bit of time looking at the roads and listening to what they told us, and then going back and looking at the roads and seeing if we agree or not. That led to some changes in priority for the 5-year capital plan. But we've all talked tonight 3 or 4 times about kicking the can down the road. Well, in the case of roads, we kicked that can into a pothole. You can no longer see it. The can's disappeared. So the question is, the 19, almost 20 miles that are in critical state and the other almost 60 that need to be brought to standard, that is a challenge. It's a big challenge. Maintaining PCI, yeah, 69%, $4.5 million a year for 5 years. And let's remember, that's a fail. You're not getting past with 69. Getting to 75%, obviously everybody would like to get the best roads they could get, consistent with the best schools, the best environment to raise our kids, the best quality tax base we could possibly have. That's all in there. So 75% is something that I think is a value judgment that the council has to make, and which ultimately I think the citizens have to make. Where do they want to go on those three graphs that we posted earlier? You could spend $1.5 million a year and come down in the mid-50s. You can spend 6.5 and wind up at 70. That's a huge range. It's a huge range of money, particularly over 5 years. I would just remind everybody of it's big to me because I wrote the slides. But back on one of the earlier slides, I talked about the difference between what the DPW asked for and what the DPW got. The best case of that was a $24 million difference between what was asked for and what was received. The worst case was 32 or 33, which is a bit like what we're talking about if you go at 6.5 times 5. So the DPW has done a nice job of postponing the problem, but the problem hasn't gone away. And I think from the road committee perspective, our recommendation is that we got to do the best we can to deal with it now. Thanks.
Thank you.
One quick question. Sure. The second to last slide for the money for preventative work and then 500 for safety, potholes, gravel. Does that include our staff money, like our staffing, or that's just materials,
that's
right?
Just materials.
That's just so everyone's clear. So the actual need is significantly higher when we look at our staffing.
That's absolutely right.
Correct.
The 6.1 million is specifically for roads. There's the whole
So that's
DPW.
0 of our staff participating.
Of the salary liability and all that, yeah.
Certainly, besides some of oversight and administration.
Correct. Other than the 500,000, obviously not in the 500,000 number itself, but putting the materials down for the 500,000 is inclusive of the rest of the budget that you.
Correct. Do we have an idea what the labor is for that, to use up that 500,000 in materials? Can we get that number? Estimate?
Sure, we can find out what it is.
Yeah.
Tom?
Greg, what's our average bond length of the bonds for a road?
4 years.
What's the maximum time that we can take that term that's acceptable to the bond market? How far can we go out? If you go back, hold on 1 second. If you just jump back to the graph a little bit, it looks like we get to pour at around year 15. Fair to pour, right? My eyes are bad. I'm sorry. That's fair. You're at fair where you're in preventive at year 15.
That's not I'm sorry, that's not a real time frame graph. That's not actually what our roads are doing. It's just a.
All right, well, let's use this as an example. Let's say we have, let's say we're at between very good and good at 10 years. If we're bonding for 4 years, we're still, that number is still in the very good stage. I mean, in order to afford to do this, it's just like your mortgage. Do you have a 10-year mortgage or do you have a 30-year mortgage? The difference in the monthly payment is staggering if you go from 30 years to 10 years. So if we're going from 4 years on reconstruction bonds out to, let's say, 8 or 10, arguments would say we could do twice the amount of roads because the debt service would be more acceptable to our cash flow. So I'm not putting him on the spot, I'm just making a point here. If we are going to do this, we're going to need to bond these roads for a longer period of time than just 4 years. Because as we've heard tonight, we've got a $2-point-something million shortage this year. We're gonna have the same thing next year. We don't have a town that's got, a gross household income like Ridgefield at $150,000 to $187,000 a household. Lisa has probably a more accurate number. The last time I saw it, sitting on economic development, it was about $70,000 per household. I don't know where we are right now, maybe it's 80, but there's a big difference between having a $150,000 household income and $80,000 household income, and we're hearing for senior citizens and families struggling to send kids to school or work on fixed incomes, we're gonna have to stretch the funding for this out a little farther so we can do this. I'm not being argumentative on the process of doing the roads, it's how we're going to pay for them. And we're going to have to stretch these bonds out to make the debt service easier so we can do more roads and get to the panacea that we're looking for, which is a good quality road without, destroying our cars and rattling our teeth out of our jaws in the wintertime when you're hitting some of those potholes. So I agree with you, and I appreciate this road committee. I called for this years ago. When I first started in this room over 8 years ago, I always thought there should have been a road committee for people, guys like you and folks like you to come in and help. You're doing a fantastic job. And Michael, I appreciate it. You guys, the work you've done on this thing, it's fantastic. But we got to fund this thing a little bit farther.
The town council appointed the road committee. The road committee should be commended for they've done a great job at delving into facts, figures, and all kinds of different processes that go on. Let them speak for themselves. They've done a fantastic job at figuring out what's going on and giving you, a synopsis of that report. So John and the rest of the group have really been, I think, a blessing to the town as a whole. But particularly, they were appointed by you. They work for you, and they're trying to report to you, facts and figures and things that are going on in, on the roadside. So,
in the over eight years plus that I've been sitting in this seat and 12 years working, volunteering for the town, this is the best presentation I've ever seen in understanding of the roads completely and where we need to go. So my only point in driving this is we've got to go from bonding these roads from 4 years out to 10 years at minimum, so we can afford to do the work that we need to do without strangling the taxpayer and jacking taxes up so more businesses leave and we can't attract folks here. So awesome job by the road committee. I greatly appreciate your work. Out to you guys. You should be commended. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation as well. Excellent. Thank you.
I was just doing some numbers real quick, and I was hoping I was pretty correct. 30% of the roads are poor condition or very poor condition in the town of Milford. And the very poor conditions, as you explained, would cost about 3.2 million. 3.2 miles would cost about 3.1 million. So that would be about 20 million for that piece of the pie. And then the other piece of the pie, the poor condition, would be about 24 million. So we're about $44 million of roads that need work that are in poor condition or very poor condition. That sound about right?
Right. It's a good synopsis of that.
Okay.
Right on target.
So I agree with Councilman Esposito. We have to do a long-term plan as opposed to a short-term plan and figure out how we're going to do that.
How we're going to pay for this. Right.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you again to the road committee. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dan.
First five? I'm just saying, fix the road. Get you 3.2 miles, $50 million a mile.
Next, we'd like to, Kathy, is Kathy still here? And this is wait till everyone leaves. Okay.
For the record, we have a representative, town planner, Colby Grimberg of Oral Health Commercial. I don't know if you want to give the agenda item or?
Yep, so this is discussion and possible action regarding a proposed change to the listed price of $2.1 million to $1.6 million for a town-owned surplus property, Still Meadow property listing. Kathy?
If some of you recall, about 9 months ago, the town decided to list the Still Meadow property for $2.1 million with O&L Commercial. At that time, we believed it was about 13 to 15 acres of developable area. After the listing was signed, and the town council agreed to it, it was determined that the developable area is probably more like 9.25 acres. And Toby's been showing it to people over the past 9 months, and there's been some feedback about how difficult it is to develop. So the recommendation was that maybe the price should be reduced. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and basically, this really developed over a little bit of time. We were given some information along the way, about 3 months into the marketing, that in fact there was a approximately plus or minus about 9 acres of usable land. We had priced the property at about $175,000 per usable acre. We are also have listed the property adjacent to it in the front, the Still Meadow property that's on Route 7. And there's an easement from the town land through that to Route 7. The bottom line is that that property, we lowered the price last year. That's almost 20 acres, but about 10 acres of usable land. And we lowered that price from to $1,750,000, which is 175,000 a usable acre. So we're recommending that the 9 acres at 177,000 an acre, it's $1,600,000. It puts it in line with really I think the maximum that you can get per acre for that size parcel and for that type of development. I do have a lot of feedback from probably in the past 9 months about a dozen developers that we've talked to for a multitude of different uses, and the site is a real challenge to develop. It's not a flat piece of property at all. The entire, from Route 7 all the way up to the top, it's a big slope. It involves a lot of wetlands. So it's a challenge, and when you have a challenge to develop a site, it's expensive. So the bottom line is we have recommended to lower the price to $1,600,000. We appreciate that the town did purchase this property quite a while ago for more than that, but market conditions are what they are, and those were different times and different reasons for things happening. So I think it's the right thing to do, and it'll make a real difference because now it'll coincide with the other parcel, and so we'll have approximately 20 acres of developable land that all listed at about 175,000 an acre. Yes?
Who owns the lower parcel?
It's owned by a partnership, two individuals that purchased the property 20 years ago. They had a couple of projects in mind that didn't happen. Part of that is, again, part of it is the marketplace. There were some retailers at the time that I was not listing the property at the time. There were some developers that had retailers in mind. That never happened. And then there was an assisted living project. And once again, the property is pretty challenging to develop. And that property by itself is very problematic because there's only one way in and out.
Which property, the lower?
The lower one. It's only one way in and out on Route 7. It's landlocked because of the town's piece and because of the water company's piece. And then there were issues with Route 7 in that area with flooding. And so over time, nothing's happened. By putting the two parcels together and marketing them together, we have 3 means of access, and that's a huge difference. So again, yes?
So another question for you. With these developers that have, that you romanced to look at these places, have they offered you?
No, they haven't.
They haven't even.
It's less than a romance. They inquired, they looked, and they walked away. They took a good look, and topography alone and the price, they walked. Yeah, I never got to that stage. I wish I had, but I haven't. But I think pricing it the way we're going to do now, with the two coinciding, and I think it'll make a difference. I'm going to go back to everyone if we get this change, and see if I can get them reinterested.
Yes. Councilman Szymanski?
So, we were here about a year ago.
Right.
You were told then how much land was developable. I told you that. I took the time prior to the meeting to prepare a map that clearly showed where the wetlands were, where the floodplain was,
right,
where the upland review area was, where the steep topography was.
Right.
At that meeting, you still told us you were comfortable with the listing price.
Well, I didn't, your information, I received that after.
It was submitted at the meeting. We discussed it.
No, but it was well after we had the listing.
Absolutely not.
I think it was after that, Paul.
So we had another meeting after the listing agreement?
I think the listing, I think
No,
it came forward.
I looked
that
at the
night.
minutes. It was the same night.
Remember that, okay.
Yeah.
No.
And, you know,
Let me just say, I'm not an engineer. The town gave me information with maps that differed from yours. I know that. And we took the listing. My recommendation of what the sale price would be is closer to what we're now gonna list it at. And the town was interested in listing it at that number, I believe, based on the fact that that's what they paid for it. That was part of the issue.
but meanwhile, we've sat here for a year with an unrealistic listing price.
Well, it's not a year, it's less than a year. Kathy and I have discussed.
So 9 months, 10 months?
There was some conversation, right after the council agreed to that listing price. There was some conversation with Mayor Brownback afterward, and, you know, we recommended at that point, we should lower the price. And,
So why didn't you come back to us?
At that point, he didn't want to bring it back. He said, no, we're gonna list it at this, and we'll just see what happens. So that's, you know, it was discussed with him, and he didn't want to bring it back.
Once I had your material, Kathy and I spoke, we met with the mayor, and it didn't go anywhere. I was interested in lowering the price back then.
So tonight is just to lower the listing price, not to extend the agreement?
Correct.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Mike?
Have we had any inklings that, have any of your prospective buyers said, if it got to this point, you might be interested, or you haven't even gotten there?
I haven't had those discussions. The people that have come to look at it have just, because of the complexity of developing the site so far, have not had interest.
I know a lot of the complexities, because I was part of the group that wanted to buy that along with the group in the front.
I'm sorry, what?
I was part of that group, and there are a lot of complexities, but I think the problem our town has is you know, the problem is it's got to go to a town vote for something to decide, correct?
Yes. Correct.
And that's what sunk us, so it might sink it again, but, you know, this town's got to look more forward. I mean, you give the land away if it can get developed and we can get tax revenue off it. I mean, I don't see any reason why we would not drop this. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me that we have it at a price that's not
Well,
going
we
to
had that
market.
discussion. I mean, having something there that you can collect taxes on is what's really important. I think, and this is not, this is kind of a normal process in that regard. It is not uncommon to list something a little bit high with your hopes that you're going to catch somebody and you're going to get some really good numbers. Realistically, if we had 13 to 15 developable acres, that price was reasonable, but on the high side. Well, about 3 months into it, it was very clear that I was interested in lowering the price based on what we were seeing and the information that we received. And but here we are today. So.
Councilman Esposito?
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to lower the price, which I'm in favor of. I was from the very beginning putting it at this price. Any of the people that are out looking in the general sense of the market, at this price, we should be able to drive some interest. Are they going to be looking for anything else?
Oh, you mean in terms of tax abatement and so on?
Yes, I mean,
oh, I'm sure. If we get to that point, people will be looking for incentive, sure.
You know, the only way I would be in favor of selling this piece of property in this town, from my own perspective, is if it drove a very large construction project and it drove a lot of jobs. And I think, you know, from my perspective, anybody who's out and floats the idea of a tax abatement better show up with a big project with a lot of jobs in order to make that fly, because, you know, we put a very aggressive tax incentive program out there that I think people should be aware of. If, you know, you need to put that in front of them, but it's going to have to be tied to real, verified jobs, not promised jobs, not hopeful jobs, real jobs. A big construction project, and something that's really going to be a big benefit to the town. I know there's a lot of different things that can go on there. We have a silver tsunami in the Northeast, so graduated assisted living is always a very, popular thing for a collector town like ours. There's a lot of smaller towns on the outside where people would like to stay in the area, but anything that's unrealistic, You know, I don't think anybody's going to support that, but it's going to have to drive some real jobs. And I'm in favor of lowering the price. I always was from the very beginning. I thought sticking at this price was unrealistic from when I sat on that properties committee. So.
And Toby's met with Laura and I, Laura's zoning enforcement officer, just to talk about different uses, and he knows that as soon as if he gets something good in, we're there to sit down with them and, you know, help them understand the process and if it will work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Paul?
No, Walter.
Walter, I'm sorry.
Do you get any kind of pushback from the water company because the aquifer sits right there?
I haven't gotten to that point. We haven't had a developer who's been doing engineering, so I think based on the way the properties sit, that the impact on them wouldn't be, I don't think there'd be much impact on them. You know, there's enough land to stay away from them.
Stay away from
The
that.
front parcel is 20 acres and you can really only develop 10.
Right.
And that's because of all the buffers
Right,
and
right.
the way you have to setbacks and so on.
All right.
And the same with the back piece, you know.
If anyone needs plans, I have all of them. The whole project. Oh my dad's
That was
stuff.
a massive mistake. Massive.
Paul?
Yeah, just to be clear, the April 24th, 2017 minutes, Mr. Szymanski asked if the front piece was still listed at 1.75 million. Mr. Bermgard said they just lowered the price because only 10 acres are usable out of the 21. And according to the town, 12 to 13 acres are usable on this site. Mr. Szymanski said per his review prior, the usable acreage is 9.25. I then asked whose information you were using. You stated that he was using a report from A. Holland and Associates to go off of, which is my company. So, just to clarify.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, Mike?
Yep, can I make a motion?
Certainly.
Make a motion to lower the price from $2.1 million to $1.6 million for the parcel located at Peegler Hill Road and 73 Fort Hill Road.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Go sell this great thing, please.
Yeah, let's get to the next one. You can use it.
Personnel Department. Greg? Discussion and possible action on the recommendation of the job description subcommittee to accept the updated job description of the Director of Finance. And Katie and Lisa are the job description subcommittee.
Correct.
Is anybody? Go ahead, Greg.
Good evening, members of the council, and thank you to Lisa and to Katie as well for the work that we did on the two job descriptions for the finance department. The first description that we have in front of you has really been completely revamped, and it's a director of finance / treasurer as is listed in the charter. It completely aligns with the duties that are in the charter. We worked with Greg Ospau on this as well, and this just more appropriately defines what the director of finance's duties are. So, any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? I can entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Let me ask you,
Yes, Dr. Mull.
This was updated December 28th. I see on the bottom of it.
Yes, that was the last date for the job description subcommittee when we approved everything.
Was this sent to us prior to tonight?
Yeah, on January 12th.
This was part of the email we received?
January 12th.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And the second item is the position of comptroller. The comptroller position is currently vacant with the appointment potentially of Olga Alexerek tonight. This job description after the update has been shared with her. And again, it really does completely revamp the current comptroller position to more align with the actual duties of the department.
Were there any salary grade adjustments made to this job description? Or?
No salary adjustments.
Okay.
So as approved through the personnel rules and regulations last year.
Any discussion? Somebody make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the job, to approve the recommendation of the job description subcommittee to accept the updated job description of the comptroller.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Then we're going to go into executive session concerning the potential appointment of Ms. Olga as comptroller. I'd like to invite Greg. Who else? Greg, Olga, right? We've come out of executive session. There were no motions taken. So next we're going to go to open session. Discussion and possible action on the appointment of Ms. Olga Alazarchek as comptroller.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Olga, congratulations.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Mayor Pete Bass to enter into a contract for a period of 3 years from July 1st, fiscal year 18-19 to July 1st, fiscal year 20-21 with KERMA for the LAP plan as listed below. The town of New Milford and the New Milford Board of Education is entering the 3rd year of KERMA's LAP budget stabilization program. The rate will not exceed negative 10% for the July 1st, 2018 to 19 liability auto property renewal.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Do you want to just
Dr.
do a
Moore?
background on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Greg?
So, just very quickly, the lap rate increase, well, decrease that we have is just due to the town's performance, and really it stems not just from our liability, but also from our workers' comp. The town's done a very good job at managing our risk and also managing our loss ratio. So this is kind of a reward, if you will. It actually should be noted that this is the 3rd reduction that we've had in the last 3 years. So our insurance rates through KERMA have actually decreased by over $300,000 in the last 3 years. So also to be noted, not noted in this motion, the workers' comp on the same track is going to be reduced by another 5% for next year as well.
So just to be clear, after 3 years, we'll have a reduction of $35,000 in the lap based on, yep. Well, plus exposure.
Any other questions for Greg? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, discussion and possible action regarding the recommendation to establish an ad hoc committee consisting of 25 members for a duration of 6 months, beginning on 1/22/18, ending 7/23/18, to report back to the mayor and town council on the following: study the feasibility of a community center in New Milford, the community center's composition, operational structure, and finances, any steps needed to legally accomplish the creation of a community center. Do I have a second? Do I have a first?
Second.
A second. Any discussion? Yes, Dr. Mull.
Who are the 25 members?
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 as of right now.
Were those names, I'm sorry, were those names sent to us?
No, I didn't put them on because I didn't have a full committee yet, but I'd like to pass these out for you, Dr. Bowen. Most of these are recommended from your Democratic Town Committee. And I have a few more that I'm interviewing. So
We're not voting on this list tonight.
if we would like to, after this motion, add this to the agenda and add these names, that would be at the leisure of this council to do so. Or at the next meeting, we can bring them back and do them all.
My only question is it's not stating anything about being at Pettibone, is that purposeful?
It's not purposeful. It's the charge of what the town wants as a community center.
So you wanted to open it so that they could make a decision whether it's
So
Pettibone's spot or not?
Correct. So this committee would be charged with seeing what opportunities were there for the composition, the structure, and finances. And then anything legally we needed to do to create the community center. So we have full public input on this, which is what the people wanted. It's their money.
So in other words, you're not restricting it to Pettibone?
No. Doug?
Pete, on this list, I see Mrs. Cindy Davis.
Yes.
She spoke earlier.
Yes.
I guess she was uninformed that she wasn't contacted, but you are on this list? So
I got
she knows that? And
I
then
got
there
the
was
name
some-
from the Democratic Town
Okay.
Committee. So
I
they're
don't
the
know
ones that.
why they didn't contact her or tell her that she was...
They're the ones that are.
Well, we haven't done anything with it,
Okay.
it's still
Right.
smiling.
Correct.
Well, she had spoke earlier about not being contacted, so I just
Correct.
wanted to clarify.
Randy?
I think you need to pass a resolution, and then.
Correct.
Okay.
If the resolution failed, there'd been no appointment. Yeah, there's no appointments.
Correct.
So what are we resolving?
So right now, there would be a motion to create the ad hoc committee.
The motion's on the floor.
Motion's on the floor.
If 6 months is not enough time, what is our
You just
measure? We
just
extend it
extend
to
it.
6 months, but it can't go past 12. That might, okay.
Yeah, just like we've done with.
Like we've done with
other
others, but we know we have a 6-month window, potential to
Correct.
improve that to another 6 months if the committee needs the time, but no, this cannot go past a year.
Correct.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Dr. Mullin?
Yeah, the same.
Go ahead.
I'm just clarifying, so the motion is specifically for a resolution for an ad hoc committee,
Yes, sir.
but not for 25 members.
No,
Unless we are to add to the agenda tonight or add it next time to vote on those members,
I think
correct?
it should be next time.
Because one thing is the resolution for the ad hoc committee, and then the membership is something different.
Yes, sir.
And it's not.
Correct?
Right.
Right.
It's not on the agenda currently.
Right.
Well, 2/3 could get it on,
Right.
you know. All right.
But it's to establish an ad hoc committee of 25 members for 6 months, beginning tonight, ending 7/23/18.
Well, it's not going to start tonight because
Well,
we
I
don't
know,
have
but
any members.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying, so
But at least we get
it
it.
starts on the day of the resolution.
I know there's a motion on the floor. I would prefer to table this until I saw a list of 25 members. If you take a vote on the motion, I will vote no.
If we do it that way, they might push us off another 2 weeks. I mean, I say get the committee and then we as a group can vote on the names. If we agree or don't agree with the names. I mean, every person on this list is someone that wants to do something positive for our town.
Yeah.
And as Pete says, there's room for another, 8 or 9 more? I don't see why we postpone just because we don't know the names.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I was convinced.
Next is, so bring this back to the next meeting with the full list of names? Is that what everybody agrees to?
And if there's people that want to be on it, please contact the mayor's office. Or if you know people that want to be on it, please contact the mayor's office.
Next is discussion and possible action on the request for transfer of funds of $8,600 to repair the JPCC boiler number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded it?
Dr. Mullin.
The line item it's coming from, railroad station, what was that initially, that money initially?
That's for the maintenance for the railroad station. Is Mike, are you still here?
Yes, sir.
Mike, if you could speak to the transfer?
Yeah, it would have been for capital building processes down at the railway station. I believe when 25 Gallery moved in, we ended up doing quite a bit of the work that would have been done with the budget, but they weren't in there prior to when we formed the budget. So we could do other maintenance on the building, but I believe this is just more important at this point in time. And rather than do a supplemental appropriation from an undesignated source, we had this money and felt it was better to move it to get this fixed on now.
And in speaking with Mike, before, this was a health and safety issue, so it's something that we need to act on and get it taken care of.
Well, they got people in the building.
Exactly. Amen. Smansky.
So, just to clarify though, I know there was a lot of discussion earlier today as it related to, previously we've had to repair our boilers. What is the state of this boiler? What is its useful
Town
life?
halls?
No, the
JP.
John Pettybones.
Yep.
What is the current condition of the boiler? What's the useful life that it has left? And what's the estimated cost of replacement?
The top of your head.
Yeah, I don't know all the answers to it. However, the condition, I'll say, is fair. I think, you know, they're serviceable boilers. I think there's some maintenance items that need to be done. You know, going forward, I don't think anything extravagant that we're seeing just yet. They're aging. However, they're, you know, like I said, I think they're serviceable for, I'm going to tell you about another 5 years, logically. And in terms of replacement costs, I think you're looking at upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of replacement costs for these type of boilers.
So to plan accordingly, you know, as we just talked about our roads for 5-year capital, as part of the budget process, could we get a replacement cost so we can plan for this as well as the circulation system?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah, I believe we have that in our 5-year.
Okay.
Somewhere in our 5-year capital plan.
Also, too, as we're going over this, first and a second, just so everybody on council has a list so far. This is as of September 17. This is kind of the cost so far that we've kind of incurred. I should have an updated list for you at the next meeting, but that's just kind of for your edification. Can you give another one to Dr. Mullen, please?
So we have a motion on?
Yep, motion on the floor. And do we have a second? Someone second? Any further discussion? All those?
Not larger font next time?
Yeah. Sorry, man. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Real quick, in relation to this, are we gonna actually get the man-hours eventually of what
We're
was
looking-
spent from all of these
I'll
departments?
have that the next meeting.
Because this number is staggeringly higher than the one that we were told.
Correct.
And I know that doesn't include the labor that was used for the youth agency, Park and Rec, and any other department, because that question was not allowed to be answered.
I've asked that, and I don't have all the departments. I have about 2/3 of them. So I'll give that to the council at the next meeting and update. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I need to jump in here. Our meeting is over.
Oh, 10:30.
That's 10:30, it's our rules.
They changed the rules to 10:30?
December, that was voted on in December.
December.
I'm gonna change it past my bedtime.
Budget season coming up.
It used to be 10 o'clock, right?
It used to be.
You better stop drinking.
Make a motion to switch it back to 10.
Let's make a motion to accelerate this meeting here.
All right.
Next is discussion.
Table the rest of it.
Discussion and possible action on the request of transfer of funds of $80,000 from contingency to other legal expenses, specifically due to anticipated expenses for ongoing litigation. These funds are anticipated for expert witnesses, depositions, trials management, conference, and preparation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, all right, Tom. I know it's late, but you can't rush through this stuff. You know, so let's get an explanation. If we're gonna be here till 10:30, we get to 10:30.
Matt, Randy?
So as, without getting into the nuances, Town of Milford has been subject to quite a bit of litigation that predates this council, predates the last council. And as you know, the town of Milford restructured its legal department last year. Last year, when the legal budget was formed administratively, Attorney DeBella had no part in it. Attorney Tower had no part in it. I believe previous mayor put it together by himself, and not what Attorney DeBella, Attorney Tower, or I would have recommended. So we were able to restructure it, and the request, and after the restructuring, the request for the additional funds is entirely related to ongoing litigation.
Correct. Without getting into detail, because obviously it's pending litigation and it's high-stakes litigation, as I've briefed you for the last month on in executive session. The funds that we're seeking are a transfer of funds within the department from other legal accounts in the amount of, I think, $51,000. And the rest is an $80,000 supplemental appropriation to continue funding the major litigation that we're involved in.
One department in particular within the legal budget, again, was budgeted abnormally high for a non-reval year, and you can figure out which one that one is.
So the lion's share of that transfer would come from that department.
So we're just simply moving money around?
For the first 51,000. The other 80 would need to come from whatever source.
Contingency we have.
From contingency.
And is there money in that account?
Yes, contingency.
Yeah, then it would, provided the council passed it, it would go to the Board of Finance for final approval, because it comes from the contingency fund.
Correct. Transfer does not have to go to the BOF because it's already appropriated. A supplemental appropriation, the 80,000 has to go to the Board of Finance.
By statute.
By law, right.
Which is why we're voting on it first and then taking on the other three.
Right. So basically, as Attorney DeBella said, just to summarize, the $80,000 from contingency is entirely related to ongoing, years-old, high-stakes litigation the town is involved in.
And it's not KRMA funded. That's not KRMA funded.
Okay, let's do it.
Somebody make a motion, please.
Did have
You did?
We did.
We got
There's a motion on the
it?
floor.
Just the 80 grand.
Just the 80?
Yeah.
Okay, and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next motion, yep.
We'll read that.
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a discussion of possible action to request a transfer of funds to other legal expenses. $30,000 from legal assessors, amount $75,000 budgeted by prior mayor, not needed. Minimal assessment appeals anticipated. $19,933.22 from legal retainer. Note, due to the reorganization of legal department with in-house counsel, rather retainer no longer necessary. And $1,500 from the legal ZBA line.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Next, discussion of possible action regarding appointments and reappointments.
All right, I gotta bring the subject up now, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I asked for item to be put on the agenda last meeting, and I asked again for this meeting, and neither one was put on. Why was that?
Which one?
Let me read it.
Yes, sir.
This was last Wednesday, 8:05 a.m. Please put the following items on the town council agenda for Monday, January 22nd. Zoning Commission, Julie Learson to fill Tom O'Brien's seat, 12218 to 113019. Planning Commission, Cindy Davis to fill an alternate seat, 12218-113021. Board of Finance, Jeff Winter to fill an alternate seat, 12218-113022. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mullen. To answer your question, I saw that, as is the mayor's, as we both know, is the mayor's opportunity. The mayor has the opportunity to appoint and reappoint members. I took a look at what I have here, and that's who I'm selecting.
I don't think you answered my question, Mayor. I asked for this item to be on the agenda.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Mullins, section 1002 doesn't allow you to request that. The appointments are at the mayor's discretion, not yours. It's unique in the charter. Attorney Grimes, is that correct, or?
Sorry, say it again, Paul.
I said my understanding is with respect to appointments, it's a little unique in that section 1002 of the charter, the appointments are made by the mayor, not at the request of a town council member like other items may be.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. That the mayor's entirely, the mayor is entirely prerogative of the appointments. He brings them forward to the council. The council says yes or no. The council doesn't say no person A and person B instead. The council does not have that prerogative in the charter. So in that case, yes, Dr. Mueller can request to put it on the agenda, but the mayor would not have to put it on the agenda per section 1002 of the charter.
I don't agree with that at all.
What you requested was somebody to be appointed. You didn't request for an agenda item. An agenda item is we want to talk about the roads, we want to talk about the legal budget. It's not, well, because I want this guy on, you have to put it on the agenda, not an appointment. Not in the 8 years I've been sitting here. I know that wasn't the last administration, it wasn't the administration before. There were many names brought in the last administration and the administration prior to that never made it to this list.
To clarify for the public, maybe I'll read that section of the charter we're talking about. All members of appointed town boards and commissions, as described in section 1001 of this charter, it's 1001, shall be subject to the provision of section 202 of this charter by the mayor with the approval of the town council by an affirmative vote of not less than a majority of all the town council members. So that's, I mean, it's crystal clear. I mean, you don't have the right, a council member does not have the right to direct the mayor to appoint somebody, period.
Excuse me, that's not what I'm doing.
But for an appointment to get on the agenda, the mayor has to bring it forward.
You know, we're really starting to split hairs here a little bit. I've heard it for a couple months now. We're going to work together. You know, we're going to listen to people. It's going to be unified. We've heard it all. Democrats have an empty seat on zoning that won't be filled. There's an alternate that you won't fill. You won't put a Democrat on finance. You know, this was all the big talk. Civility, unity, pulling together, and now it's done. It's gone. None of it's happening.
Well, I'd like to counter that because I'm looking at an ad hoc committee here for the community center of 14 people and the majority of them are Democrats. I'm looking at plenty of Ds, Us, and Rs here, all mixed. There's just as many Ds on this page as I see Rs and Us. I mean, you've been sitting in this room for a long time, Pete. You know, this is not new. This is not new. People go for an interview. If they don't pass the muster of the recommendation from the mayor, they don't pass.
Ask the attorney to run this by me again. If a council member requests to put something on the agenda, a request to the mayor to put something on the agenda, the mayor has the right not to do that.
If it's covered elsewhere, and in this case, it's covered elsewhere, the appointments come from the mayor.
I understand that, but if a request comes from a council member to the mayor to put an item on the agenda, the mayor does not have to do that.
In this case, no, Mr. Mayor. If the mayor is not willing to appoint that person, that does not go on the agenda.
The mayor's not appointing.
That's how the appointments are made.
That's what the charter
No, we vote for it.
No, it's appointed by the mayor.
By the mayor or
by
the council.
That's the exact
It's really
verbiage.
amazing what you guys are doing here.
Listen, this is not like bringing any other item up. If you want to talk about any other item for possible action and discussion, everybody's got the right in this room to do it. Everybody at the town council, you can bring up any subject you want. We want to talk about roads, you know, anything that's within our purview. But the picking of the committees is the mayor's
That was
prerogative.
not my point. That seemed to be the second part of it. I'm saying if a council member makes a request to the mayor to put an item on the agenda, the mayor does not have to do that. Does he have the power of appointment? I do not argue that. He has the power of appointment.
But I think Matthew just answered that.
But
I'm seeing two different things. I'm seeing a request, and then I'm seeing a denial.
No, you're seeing, you had a request there for a specific person for a specific committee that went either
To go on the agenda.
Point of order. This isn't warned on the agenda. The next item is the appointment of the 9/11 committee. So if we want to have this as a discussion, we should have this at the next meeting, properly warn it, and have a discussion relative to appointments.
Good, then let's table the rest of this agenda, and we'll discuss it next time.
That's independent of the actual appointments themselves. You're speaking with respect, the town attorney's already opined on the fact the language and the verbiage is crystal clear. He read it to you. It said the appointment is by the mayor with the approval of the town council. These appointments are on the agenda tonight. They were made by the mayor, correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
And they're now seeking the approval of the town council. That's what's happening right now.
You can either vote for them or against them. That's your prerogative.
I think the only, if you wanted something on this discussed on the agenda, the discussion point would be to bring up changing the charter so that you have to take the Democrats' appointments if they so move them. That's not in the charter right now. You can't make the agenda item that I want this person appointed because that's against the charter. So if you want to put on the agenda, changing the charter so that if there's a minority seat that we have to take whatever that Democratic or the minority party puts forward, that's a change to the charter, and that's something that we can discuss. But we can't discuss individual names based on the charter. That's all. And so if you ask him to put that on the agenda, it doesn't have to go on there, nor should it go on there. Wow. But that being said, it's up to the mayor's prerogative if he wants to put someone on there or not. And it's up to us whether to vote who's on there, yes or no. If we all decide that we want the other person, then we'll all vote no against the person that's on the agenda.
I make a motion to reappoint to the 9/11 committee the following people: Daniel A. Sullivan, Cheryl A. Bonus, Walter M. Bayer, Patrick J. McGuire, Tammy Lee Reardon, Doreen A. Gray, for the terms of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I move to reappoint to the Commission on Aging Michael J. Moran from the term December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I make a motion to appoint and reappoint to the Commission on the Arts Jeremy A. Ruin for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2019. To reappoint James R. Scrimgeour, Jason C. Roberts, Barbara S. Payne, Betty Lou Mandler, Joanne M. Lillis for the term December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2020. To appoint Mary Kimball for the term January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2018, and appointing Linda Pooter for a term January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I make a motion to reappoint to the Building Code Board of Appeals Russell T. Posthauer Jr. for the term December 1st, 2016 to November 30th, 2021, and to reappoint Eugene J. Schilling for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2022.
Just a quick question, Pete.
Yep.
Why does it go back to 2016? Is that just because that's when his term started?
Correct.
Is that the gist? And because it's reappointed, it has to be listed? Okay, thank you. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to appoint Steve Kluge to the Candlewood Lake Authority for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2020.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to reappoint Michael John Cavallero to the Conservation Commission for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to appoint and reappoint to the Economic Development Commission to reappoint Kevin Cox and Michael Gold for the term December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2022. To appoint Jen Friedley for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2022. To reappoint Monica R. Harkin for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2019. To appoint Alexander J. Karp for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to appoint the following to the Ethics Commission: Chris Karchner for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2018. There's got to be a typo there. To appoint Teresa Valinsky for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2022, and to appoint James Tupko for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2020. I apologize, I thought it said 2017. That's correct.
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we have any Democrats that sit on that committee?
Yes, sir.
Just for the sake of balance.
You have it. Yeah, I just want to get it, make sure we get the right.
Ari Rosenberg's on there, Michelle Shackelford,
Okay.
and David
Okay.
Schaefer.
That's all the one? No.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Make a motion to appoint and reappoint to the Farmland and Forest Preservation Committee Kathleen M. Castaneda for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2021, and to appoint Jeremy Schultz for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to appoint to the Film Commission James Crowley for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2019, to appoint Katie Francis for a term of January 22nd, 2017 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So reappoint to the I make a motion to reappoint to the Housatonic River Commission Mark J. Andriotta for a term of December 1st, 2016 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to reappoint to the Housing Code Enforcement Committee Christopher P. Gardner for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to appoint and reappoint to the Housing Partnership, reappoint Margaret H. Molina, December 1st, 2016 to November 30th, 2018, and to appoint Jeff McBriarty from January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion?
Question
Dr.
on
Munn?
that. Aren't there like 10 spots open on that
There sure.
partnership?
Yes, sir.
So we're just doing 2 now?
Yep. I'm still trying to get more people. Some of them are like council, town council
Right, there's some
appointments.
restricted to
Yeah.
council, to
Yep.
public interest,
Yes, sir.
right.
So there'll be more when the names, when we can get some more names for that. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
I think we voted.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Make a motion to reappoint to the Inland Wetlands Commission James M. Anderson, Stephen Boston, Daniel Joseph Kuiper for a term of December 1st, 2016 to November 30th, 2020.
Second.
Dr. Mull?
How many sit on the, I'm a little bit embarrassed, how many sit on the Inland Wetlands Commission?
There are, let me just pull it up one second.
Again, I'm looking for a balance.
4, 5, 6, 7 members. There's 3 Democrats on there already.
Okay, looking for a balance.
Yep. And these guys already served, so they're just getting reappointed.
7 and 7 and 3 alternates, Walter.
Dr. Mull?
Did Angela DeMitt make known to you that she wanted to serve again on Inland Wetlands?
She did. I'm trying to get an appointment with her, and then I will reappoint her unless the council feels comfortable by reappointing her now. We could do that.
Angela DeMitt has served on it for years, and the chair had asked that she be reappointed.
Yep. See
And
that?
as an alternate. Right.
I think that's the only spot
Yeah.
open
Yeah.
at this point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Angela DeMitt as an alternate.
Can we add,
So I'll amend the motion.
add that into the motion?
We have to,
I need a motion to amend the agenda, but she serves until she's replaced. So if she's
Exactly.
there now, you can put her on next time her service isn't gonna get interrupted.
Right.
Is she serving right now?
Yes.
I didn't see her, okay, I didn't see her name.
She's on that call, you said.
Wait a minute,
No,
let's
she's not on
double
the
check.
list, let's just add it to me.
I
Let's add it to make sure.
I looked and I didn't see her
I don't
name
see
on
her
the
name,
list
right.
when I
You're
looked
gonna need a
today.
motion to amend the agenda.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add
Angela did it.
Angela Dimmitt to the inland wetlands
Same time.
as an alternate.
But
Wait,
can somebody withdraw the first,
Right, there's one motion out there already,
Right,
and now
so
we're
we're
making a
withdrawing
second
that.
one.
Can we vote on this motion and then just amend the agenda afterwards and add her next, so we don't have to go back?
I'm sorry, that motion is out of order, only because the mayor makes the appointments, and you, as a council, as we just learned, cannot add appointments to the agenda.
Right.
So
Right.
she serves until she's replaced, so the mayor can add her to the agenda at the next meeting, and her service doesn't get interrupted, she's still serving now.
The mayor can make a motion right now.
The mayor cannot amend the agenda, only the council can with the 2/3 vote, and they cannot add an appointment to the agenda.
So Dr. Monk should be on the next one,
And there's no wetlands meeting until after the next
the
town
next
council
meeting.
So the motion's still on.
So the motion is still
For
on.
these ones.
May motion for those three names.
Great, yep, we're ready.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Make a motion to appoint and reappoint to the Local Emergency Planning Committee, Carl Fuchs from Gaylordsville Fire Department for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2020. Brian Bolero from Waterwitch for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2020. An appointment of Dennis Larkin from January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to appoint and reappoint to the Northville One Room Schoolhouse Committee the following. Appoint Bob Capola for a term of January 22nd, 2018 to November 30th, 2019. To reappoint Robert Burkhart for a term of December 1st, 2016 to November 30th, 2018. And to reappoint Elaine Barksdale and Patricia A. Greenspan for terms of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? If I could have someone make an entertain extending for 20 minutes?
I make a motion to extend our finish time by 20 minutes to 10:50.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dr. Moore?
Yes,
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
And Mike's opposed?
Yes.
Real quick, Paul.
Enough.
Make a motion to reappoint to the Northwest Regional Mental Health Board Linda G. Green for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2019.
Seconded.
Any discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Make a motion to reappoint the temporary Old Boardman Bridge Committee the following people: Katie Francis, Robert Burkhart, Jeremy Ruman, Joe Quaranta, William Devlin, Katie Francis twice, Walter Bayer, Ron J. Saresha for a term of January 11th, 2018 to July 11th, 2019.
Second.
Does Katie get one vote or two?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
She gets two votes, yes.
No, then I oppose that.
So we did include all the members, so we didn't miss one. I just checked it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Reappoint to the Parks and Rec Commission Lisa A. Lawson, Thomas K. Saunders, Alfred John Esposito for terms December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Appoint and reappoint to the Pension Committee Thomas L. Pilla for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2020. Reappoint Frankie Wargo for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2020. Reappoint George Thomas Barnett, December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2019. Appoint Walter O'Connor for a term of January 22nd, 2017 to November 30th, 2020. And to appoint Bob Sherry for a term of January 22nd, 2017 to November 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this the one that they were having problems getting a quorum?
Yes.
Well, hopefully this new list get them a little bit better than that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Appoint to the Board of Finance Richard A. Sada for a term of December 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2019, noting that he is unaffiliated, not Democrat.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Mullin?
Wasn't he on, didn't he want to run for the zoning board?
Yes.
Instead of the Board of Finance?
He did.
Because has he stepped down as an alternate from that? Or just, he's not on the zoning board anymore?
Well, the issue was he wanted to become a regular member on the zoning commission, if I recall, and statutorily he could not because of his affiliation. So he could not.
I'm sorry, Paul, I didn't.
Statutory, if I recall, statutorily, he could not become a regular member of the zoning commission because he's unaffiliated. He was in the wrong party.
That answers my question.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Mullin?
So, when the full member of zoning is not there, she will not be replaced by a member of her party, because there will be no Democrat alternate on zoning. That's what you're doing with this vote. So I'm opposed to this.
On zoning or finance?
Finance, I'm sorry. Too late.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Dr. Mullin?
Opposed?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Stole Walter's
Stole Walter's
I was in a hurry, I guess I'll wait in a hurry.
Hey, you got it at 10:30.